So we will continue our discussion on African poetry, LS 232, by looking more into the pioneer poets. One pioneer poet that I would like you to know is Phillis Wheatley. She's reputed to be the first African American female poet. And the reason I wanted to know her poetry or know about her is the fact that her style and thematic concern fits into our description of the pioneer poets. Even though she wrote way earlier than the others, because the collection in which we have this poem that I want to read was published in 1773. When we are talking about the pioneer poets, we're actually looking at the 1930s. I believe you get to study more about Phillis Wheatley in African American literature, but I would just like to read her poem entitled On Being Brought from Africa to America, because I wanted to understand how her themes and style fit into the extensive definition of the pioneer poets. So Phillis Wheatley is spelled Phillis. Phillis. And Wheatley, Wheatley. Wheatley. Phillis Wheatley. She was captured during the era of slavery in Africa and taken to America. She was about 7 years old when she was captured and enslaved. She worked for her masters, who were kind enough to give her education even while she served the household as a slave. At a point, they noticed that she was quite intelligent. Remember that the reason that Africans were enslaved was that one of the reasons Africans were enslaved was that they were not as human as the Europeans, or didn't have the level of intelligence the Europeans have. And so with the show of intelligence by Wheatley, she was one of those who dispelled the myth. The African was intellectually inferior to the European, or that the black person was intellectually inferior to the white person. So, in 1773, she published poems on various subjects, religion, and morals. It is said to be the first volume of poetry by an African American published in modern times, not just by a female, but by African American. Poems on various subjects, religions, and morals. It is said to be the first volume of poetry by an African American published in modern times. The poem is entitled "On Being Brought from Africa to America." And I read, "'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land, taught my benighted soul to understand that there is a God, that there is a Savior too. Once our redemption neither sought nor knew, some view our sable rays with scornful eye. That color is a diabolic dye. Remember, Christian Negroes, black as Cain, may be refined and join the angelic train." That's the poem. I'll just read it again and then make some explanation, and then we move on. "'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land, taught my benighted soul to understand that there is a God, that there is a Savior too. Once our redemption neither sought nor knew, some view our sable rays with scornful eye. That color is a diabolic dye. Remember, Christians, Negroes, black as Cain, may be refined and join the angelic train." So this poem shows how slavery can condition the individual's mind, because she's even writing to justify slavery and colonialism, and trying to see that there is something good that can be made out of it. When you scrutinize the lines carefully, you realize exactly this. But she says, "'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land." She's trying to look at slavery from a positive perspective, when it is seen in light of it bring about her redemption through the Christian religion, which is also religion of the slave masters, the same religion that was used to justify slavery. Because the slavers quoted some scriptures to justify the existence of slavery in the master-servant relationship. "Taught my benighted soul to understand that there is a God, that there is a Savior too." As if the Africans did not know, did not have religion. Africans have religion, but our religion is one that believes in the existence of more than one deity. We have gods in our religion. So what she's saying here, she's making it appear like the Christian religion, Christianity is superior to other religions, because it talks about the existence of only one God, that there is a God and there is a Savior too, also implying that perhaps there's no salvation in the traditional religion. And take note, in the first line she says, "'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land." It's playing into the ideology of the Europeans, that the religions of Africans, traditional religion in Africa, should be called paganism. Whereas it is only down definition. It's only down word that they use. It doesn't in any way make the traditional religion in Africa to deserve such an epithet. So slavery goes to the mind and even conditions the slave to believe in the ideologies of the master. That is what this poem shows. Once our redemption neither sought nor knew. She's simply saying that she didn't learn about salvation until she was enslaved. As if there's no salvation in the traditional religion. So she's justifying the religion of slavery, the religion that enslaved her, embracing it, making it look like it's better than the religion of his ancestors. Some view as sable rays with scornful eye, that color is a diabolic dye. Remember Christian Negroes black as Cain were refined and joined the angelic train, making it look like, okay, so it is not only Europeans that can be served. Africans can be saved as well. Okay? And if they believe in the Christian religion, they will join the angelic train. The angelic train is the group of the white people who are already saved by virtue of their race. Okay? So it appears then that Whittley is saying that there's no salvation in traditional religion because she is conditioned by the ideology of slave masters that have been used to educate her. Okay? So apart from the justification of slavery and colonialism in this point, which are the things you should know, we also talk about the style, which fits into most of the stylistic features of the Pioneer Poet. For instance, in most of the lines you have the use of inversion. We talked about the other time. The use of inversion, for instance, in line 1, 2, 3, 4, line 4, it says, "Once I redemption neither knew nor saw." There's an inversion there, the reversal of the syntactic order of words to create a literary effect. But remember that when she actually wrote this poem, there could have been some justification to use this, okay? So that's okay compared to what Gladys Kesley Hayford and the other Pioneer poets did in the 1930s. Okay, so we'll just read one more poem from the Pioneer poets, and then we can proceed to the poetry of transition. Let me read from Denis Osadebe's Who Buys My Thoughts? Let me read from Denis Osadebe's Who Buys My Thoughts? Denis Osadebe's Who Buys My Thoughts? Who buys my thoughts? The last time we read from his Young Africa plea. Then we want to read from Who Buys My Thoughts? that sweetens every taste. He bars the throb of young Africa's soul, the soul of teeming millions, hungry, naked, sick, yearning, pleading, waiting. Who buys my thoughts, buys not some false pretense of oracles and tingles. He buys the thoughts projected by the mass of restless youths who are born into deep and clashing couches, sorting, questioning, watching. Who buys my thoughts, buys the spirit of the age, the unquenching fire that smolders and smolders in every living heart. That's true and noble or suffering. To burn all ordeal, destroying and chastening. Destroying, chastening, chastening. So, in this point, Deniso Sadebe is talking about African philosophy, African ideology, which was put aside at the onset of the colonial encounter. And replaced with a colonialist ideology. And so in this point, Sadebe is reaffirming the importance of African ideology, philosophy, and cosmology. Who buys my thought buys not a cup of honey, not a cup of honey that sweetens every taste. It buys the thought of young Africa's soul, the soul of teeming millions, hungry, naked, sick, yearning, pleading, waiting. In these lines, the first stanza, he discusses the current oppressed state of Africans under the yoke of colonialism. And the idea of waiting in the last line of the first stanza is waiting for freedom, liberation, independence. And so we can read into the poem nationalist thought. Or the nationalist voyage on freedom and liberation of Africa. Who buys my thought buys not some false pretense of oracles and tingles, buys the thoughts projected by the mass of restless youth who are born into deep and clashing cultures, sorting, questioning, watching. So in this stanza, the theme of the oppression of Africans, their thoughts, their worldviews are depicted, especially the theme of clash of cultures. Then the next stanza says, who buys my thought buys the spirit of the age, the unquenching fire that smolders and smolders in every living heart that's true and noble or suffering. It burns all over the earth, destroying, chastening, chastening. So the poem is making a case for the liberation of Africa from the yoke of colonialism. said that most of the pioneer poets approved of colonialism without reservation. They were concerned with themes of race, Christianity, and heroism. The pioneer poets were concerned with the theme of race, Christianity, and heroism. We also said that the poetry of the pioneer poets was influenced by church hymns. The poetry of the pioneer poets was influenced by church hymns, Bible knowledge, allusion to classical period and English poetry, which they imitated shamelessly. I'll talk that again. Among the major characteristics of the pioneer poets, their poems are that they were not forceful in speaking against colonialism. In fact, some of them approved colonialism in a way. Then they were concerned with themes of race, blackness, Christianity, and heroism, the heroism of Africa. They were also concerned, their poems were also influenced by church hymns, Bible knowledge, allusion to classical period, and imitation of the English verse of the 19th century. Let us move on and look at the second phase. Which is poetry of transition. Poetry of transition. The second phase is poetry of transition. And poetry of transition was written in the 1950s and the 1960s. Poetry of transition was written in the 1950s and 1960s. They wrote against colonialism and celebrated African culture. Poets who wrote in this era were vocal against colonialism, and they wrote to celebrate African culture. Among the poets of this era are Okot, especially in his work Song of Lawino. Song of Lawino and Song of Ocol. Song of Lawino and Song of Ocol. Other poets in this category degree. This phase are Christopher Okibo, John Pepe Clark Pekedaramo, Wole Shoyinka, and Gabriel Okara. Other poets in this era are Christopher Okibo, John Pepe Clark Pekedaramo, or Jeffrey Clark, Wole Shoyinka, and Gabriel Okara. So Okot wrote Song of Lawino and Song of Ocol. Song of Lawino and Song of Ocol. So we are going to look at Song of Lawino today. First of all, before we go on to look at the poems from the other poets, at least one poem each. So let us talk about Okot Pitek. He was born on the 7th of June, 1931. Pitek, born on the 7th of June, 1931, and he lived until 19th July, 1982. And he lived until 19th July, 1982. He was from Uganda. He was from Uganda. He was a poet. He was a novelist. He was an anthropologist. Interested in the oral literature of his people. He wrote Song of Lawino in 1966 and Song of Ocol in 1970. His novel is entitled White Teeth, which is the translated title, White Teeth, published in 1971, published in 1989, published in 1989. In 1971, he wrote two songs. Okot Pitek was many things, including a footballer who played for the national team, including being a footballer. played for the national team, home and abroad. He also wrote an opera. He was educated in Africa and outside Africa. Was educated in Africa and outside Africa, including the University of Bristol, the University College of Wales, and at Oxford. He taught at Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda. Among other details of his life. So the collection, Son of Lawino, has as its subject matter a clash of culture clash. The major subject matter, major theme of Song of Lawino. The collection is noted to have a distinctive African style drawn from the African oral tradition of song. The collection is noted to have a distinctive African style drawn from the African oral tradition of song. Remember, in the introductory class for poetry, you are normally told that poetry is sung. Wherever there is a song, there is poetry. And African traditional poetry is mostly sung. Mostly sung. So at the time that Okot lived, education was mostly a male preserve. Only few women were educated at the time. So you had mostly educated men coming back to marry mostly non-educated women. And these men were educated in the European culture. And the non-educated women remained in the African cultural values, or remained with the African cultural values. So this clash of culture is seen at the level of the home, between husband and wife, where the husband is the educated person and the wife is not educated. And the wife is not an illiterate. Okay? The wife is an illiterate. Does not know how to read or write. Meaning that she was not exposed to Western culture. And so there's going to be problems. Okay? There's going to be problems, the kind that we normally see in this the social media skits of the caring, educated husband who always gets disappointed by the uneducated wife. For instance, one day he brings her some beautiful flowers to appreciate her. The next moment, she cooks the flowers as a good meal. Okay? I've seen another skits where the uneducated village girl is taken to the city and then puts in the city kitchen, modern kitchen. But she still finds firewood to make fire on the tile floor, while the gas cooker is just there resting. Okay? But she doesn't know that the gas cooker is supposed to be used for what? Repairing meals. She's used to using firewood in the village to repair her meals. So that is the kind of class that we are talking about here, where the man who is educated gets yoked to the woman who is not educated. So some of Lawino then is the complaint. The complaint by Lawino is the woman, the uneducated woman, about the actions of her educated husband towards her, the strange ways, the strange behavior of her educated husband towards her that she doesn't understand. So Lawino is the lady, and Osho is the guy. So when you have Song of Lawino, they talk about the lament of the woman about the husband, how he looks down on her because she's not educated, disrespects her, and so on and so forth. Her ways, the way she behaves, is not commended by him because he thinks that the woman is below his standards. And then when you get to Song of a Show, then you see that the husband now gives a response to balance the dialogue or the discourse. So I think we should pick up this collection and read. Okay? Pick up the collection and read. Song of Lawino, Song of the Show. So I'm going to read some parts of the poem for the purpose of this class so that you feel the vibes of the collection. Okay? It's important that you feel the vibes of the poem. It's a long song, but it's a long song. But it's not an epic. It's a long song, but it's not an epic. So we are told that it does not really fit into any of the European poetry models, making it a distinctive African poem. So being a song is not just a title. We are told that it could actually be sung. The beginning, part one, my husband's tongue is bitter. Please pay attention. We can read several themes into this poem, including abuse, domestic abuse, apart from clash of culture. Husband, now you despise me. Now you treat me with spite and say I have inherited the stupidity of my aunt. Son of the chief, now you compare me with the rubbish in the rubbish pit. You say you no longer want me because I am like the thing left behind in the deserted homestead. You insult me. You laugh at me. You say I do not know the letter A because I have not been to school and I have not been baptized. So this lady is the true African lady. She represents African culture. Okay? She's an embodiment, Lawino is an embodiment of African culture, whereas the husband is an embodiment of European culture. Okay? So she has not been to school, she has not been baptized, meaning that she's not a Christian, and she's not educated. Okay, so making one wonder why such a marriage took place, because the differences are just huge. It's bound to create problems, right? You compare me with a little dog, a puppy, my friend, age mate, or my brother. Take care. Take care of your tongue. Be careful what your lips say. First, take a deep look, brother. You are now a man, and not a dead fruit. To behave like a child does not befit you. So she's not only complaining, she's also hitting back at the man. Remember, she's saying that the man's tongue is bitter, but we know also that she is also able to talk. Okay? In keeping with the idea that the woman is capable of speaking more than the man. So probably the man just made a few statements about how she's not educated and how she is not civilized, and now see all that she's responding. She's saying, okay? It's a long one. Okay? So she's also able to talk, and she's not only a victim because she also hits back at the husband, whether directly or indirectly, because here it says, you are not a dead fruit. To behave like a child does not befit you. Okay? Because she's indirectly calling the husband childish in his behavior. Listen, O you are the son of a chief. Leave foolish behavior to little children. It's not right that you should be laughed at in a song as being satirized. Songs about you should be songs of praise. Stop despising people as if we were a little foolish man. Stop treating me like a soulless ash. Become barren of insult and stupidity. Who has ever uprooted the pumpkin? My clansmen, I cry, listen to my voice. The insults of my man are painful beyond bearing. My husband abuses me together with my parents. He says terrible things about my mother, and I am so ashamed. He abuses me in English, and he's so arrogant. Okay? He says I'm rubbish. That's the only word she hears. Okay? And the husband says rubbish. You may not understand the other ones, but rubbish. So he says I'm rubbish. He no longer wants me. In cruel jokes, he laughs at me. He says I am primitive because I cannot play the guitar. He says my eyes are dead and I cannot read. He says my ears are blocked and cannot hear a single foreign word. But I cannot count the corn. Okay? So she's not educated. But remember that she's personified here and she's symbolic because she stands for Africa. And all these insults could be read or should be read in terms of how Europeans actually look at Africans. That's the beauty of it. So it goes beyond husband and wife quarrel and plays into the larger theme of colonial imposition and the view of Africans as inferior to Europeans, racism, and all of those things. He says, I am like sheep, the fool, who show treats me. He says, I am no longer a person. He says, I am silly, like the Oju insect that sits on the ear pot. My husband treats me roughly. The insult, words cut more painfully than sticks. So again, you see there are the psychological import of negative words on the victim. On the line. Okay? Because words cut more painfully than sticks. So sometimes it's better for you to use a stick to beat someone than to say something to that person. Because that really wounds more than the physical wound. Okay? He says, my mother is a witch, that my clansmen are fools because they eat rats. He says, we are all kafir. We do not know the ways of God. We sit in deep darkness. We do not know the gospel. He says, my mother hides her charms in her necklace, and that We are all sorcerers. My husband's tongue is bitter, like the roots of the Lawino lily. It is not, it is hot like the penis of the bee, like the sting of the calan. His tongue is fierce, like the arrow of scorpion, deadly like the spear of buffalo horner. It is voracious like the poison of the barren woman, and corrosive like the juice of the gold. My husband pours corn on black people. He behaves like a hen that eats his own egg, a hen that should be imprisoned under a basket. His eyes grow large, deep black eyes. Cholo's eyes resemble those of the Nile fish. He becomes fierce like a lioness with cubs. He begins to behave like a mad hyena. He says black people are primitive and their ways are utterly harmful. Their dances are mortal sins. They are ignorant, poor, and diseased. The show says he's a modern man, a progressive and civilized man. He says he has read extensively and widely, and he can no longer live with a thing like me, who cannot distinguish between good and bad. He says I'm just a village woman. I am of the old type and no longer attractive. He says I am blocking his progress. My head, he says, my head, he says, is as big as that of an elephant, but it is only bones. There's no brain in it. He says I am only wasting his time. That's the end of the first part. Okay? That's the end of the first part. So it's quite an interesting collection. So maybe we just um, we read the second part and then check the husband's response before we move on to other things. But you'll have to you'll have to get the collection so that you read the entire thing. So I'm taking part two now. The woman with whom I share my husband. The woman with whom I share my husband. So this is getting hotter because it then implies that. Anyway, let me know and display what is going to happen here. Let me just read. Osho rejects the old type. He's in love with a modern woman. So he has got to find someone who is educated like him. Okay? He's in love with a beautiful girl who speaks English. But only recently, we will sit close together, touching each other. Only recently, I will play on my bell harp, sing praises to my beloved. Only recently, he promised that he trusted me completely. I used to admire him speaking in English. The show is no longer in love with the old type. He's in love with a modern girl. The name of the beautiful one is Clementine. Brother, when you say Clementine, the beautiful one aspires to look like a white woman. Her lips are red hot. She is describing the modern woman now who has imbibed the European culture, and it's interesting how she looks. So let me take that again so you pay attention. Brother, when you see Clementine, the beautiful one aspires to look like a white woman. The inferiority of the black woman at the time was to want to be European by doing everything, changing the hair, skin pigmentation, and all of that. Look at the white woman. So her lips are red hot. What does that mean? What does that mean? Her lips are red hot. What does it mean? What's the interpretation? Eh? She uses lipsticks, right? Good. That's why the lips are red hot. Like glowing charcoal. She resembles the wild cats. It's funny. So another thing that you need to note about this poem is that it's satirical, right? You need to know the element of satire in the poem and humor, the infusement of humor in the poem. Okay, when you are discussing it. She resembles the wild cat that has dipped his mouth in blood. Her mouth is like yours. It's like an open ulcer, like the mouth of a field. Tina dust powder on her face, and it looks so pale. She resembles the wizard, getting ready for the midnight dance. So she's actually the one who has mouth. This Lawino, not the husband, right? Um, she dots the hash dirt all over her face. That's how she says powder, hash dirt. Okay? And when little sweat begins to appear on her body, she looks like the guinea fowl. So she's actually satirizing European way of life here. Okay, that's what you need to understand. Especially how funny the African looks trying to unsuccessfully imitate the European. Okay? Mm-hmm. But something that is not yours, when you try to imitate it, you look funny. And you look like a joke. The smell of carbolic soap makes me sick, and the smell of powder provokes the ghost in my head. It is then necessary to fetch a goat from my mother's brother. The sacrifice over, the ghost dance drum must sound. The ghost delayed, and my peace restored. I do not like dusting myself with powder. The thing is good on pink skin because it is already pale. But when a black woman has used it, she looks as if she has dysentery. Tina looks sickly, and she is slow moving. She's a piteous sight. Some medicine has eaten up Tina's face. The skin on her face is gone, and it's all raw and red. The face of the beautiful one is tender like the skin of a newly born baby. Bleaching. That's bleaching, right? And it was not as if the bleaching creams then were very good, were very wild. You can imagine the effect. And she believes that this is beautiful. Remember, when we are teaching negritude, we say that black is beautiful. Okay, so why should the black person now want to change the skin to white skin at a greater cost? Okay, even at the cost of health. Just because you believe that white is beautiful, right? And she believes that this is beautiful because it resembles the face of a white woman. Her body resembles the ugly coats of the hyena. Her neck and arms have real human skins. Her necks and arms have real human skins. She looks as if she has been struck by lightning. I mean, she's spotted by the leopard, right? Or front like the Congoni in a fire hunt. And her lips look like bleeding. Her hair is long. I mean, it has been permed, all right? Relaxed or something. Her hair is long, or there's a foot attachment. Her head is huge like that of the owl. She looks like a witch, like someone who has lost a head and should be taken to the clan shrine. Her neck is robe-like, thin, long and skinny, and a face sickly pale. The average educated African woman at the time wanted to have the shape of the European woman. For us, in Africa then, The plumpier the person, the better. So, which is why they normally fed the, the maiden fattening, right? And the fattest one will win the prize, be the champion. So if you were not fat, then probably you were not well fed. There was no food in your house, or you were not being taken good care of. All right? So, but Clementine probably had refused to eat so that she'll be slim. That's why her neck is described like that. Okay? Forgive me, brother. Do not think I am insulting the woman with whom I share my husband. So it's like she's complaining to her brother, okay, about what she's going through in her husband's house. Again, she might also be addressing the male audience, the male uh, group, to let them know what she's going through. Forgive me, brother. Do not think I am insulting the woman with whom I share my husband. Do not think my tongue is being sharpened by jealousy. It is the sight of Tina that provokes sympathy from my heart. I do not deny I am a little jealous. It is no good lying. We all suffer from a little jealousy. It catches you unaware, like the ghosts that bring fevers. Surprises people, like earth tremors. But when you see the beautiful woman with whom I share my husband, you feel a little pity for her. So the irony in this case is that, and this phenomenon persists still today, that the African man claims to imbibe European culture and religion, but cannot also stick to monogamy, which runs in his blood, uh, um, which is a Christian doctrine because polygamy runs in his blood. Her breasts are completely shriveled up, so there's a kind of confusion there. Okay? The clash is also seen in the man's personality. The breasts are completely shriveled up. They are all folded, dry skinned. They are made nest of cotton wool, and she folds the bits of cowhide in the nest and calls them breasts. Oh, my clansmen, how aged modern women pretend to be young girls. They mold the tips of the cotton nest so that they are sharp, and with these, they prick the chest of their men, and the men believe they are holding the waist of young girls that have just shut up. The modern types sleep with their nests tied firmly on their chest. How many kids has this woman sucked? The empty bags on her chest are completely flattened, dry. Perhaps she has aborted many. Perhaps she has thrown her twins in the pit latrine. Is it the vengeance ghost of the many smashed eggs that have captured her head? How young is this age mate of my mother? The woman with whom I share my husband walks as if a shadow has been captured. You can never hear her footsteps. That's cat walking. She looks as if she has been ill for a long time. Actually, she's starving. She does not eat. She says she fears getting fat. that the doctor has prevented her from eating. She says a beautiful woman must be slim like a white woman. So that's why she denies herself food, so that she'll be slim like the European woman. Not caring if she will die of hunger and malnutrition. All right? When she walks, you hear her bones rattling. Her waist resembles that of the hornet. The beautiful one is dead dry, like a stump. She is meatless, like a shell on a dry riverbed. But my husband despises me. He laughs at me. He says he's too good to be my husband. The troll says he's not the age mate of my grandfather. To live with someone like me, who has not been to school. He speaks with arrogance. He shows his bold. He says things in broad daylight. He says there is no difference between me and my grandmother, who covers herself with animal skin. I am not unfair to my husband. I do not complain because he wants another woman, whether she is young or aged. Who has ever prevented men from wanting women? Meaning that polygamy is built into African traditional culture. That's why the woman does not really have a problem against it. All right? So who has ever prevented men from wanting women? Who has discovered the medicine for thirst, the medicines for hunger, and hunger and enmity? Who has discovered them? In the dry season, the sun shines and the rain falls in the wet season. Women hunt for men, and men want women. When I have another woman with whom I share my husband, I am glad. That's how it's supposed to be. Understand? The Asian African culture, when the man brings another woman, the woman is supposed to be, that's why it's supposed to be happy that there's a new person. Alright? So I don't know what's happening these days. Okay? Alright? I don't know what's happening these days that people don't want more women to come into the home. Alright? Yes, sir. When I have another woman with whom I share my husband, I am glad. A woman who is jealous of another, with whom she shares a man, is jealous because she is slow, lazy, and shy. So that is affirmation of polygamy in African traditional culture. Because she is cold, weak, clumsy. The competition for a man's love is fought at the cooking place. Have you heard? Yes. When he returns from the field or from the hut, like they have to compete who will prepare the best meal for the man. Okay? So you win him with a hot bath and sour porridge. The wife who brings a meal first, whose food is good to eat, whose dish is hot, whose face is bright. Well, you don't only serve the food, you have to smile while serving the food, right? Good. Whose face is bright, and whose heart is clean, and whose eyes are dark, like the shadows. The wife who jokes freely, who eats in the open, not in the bedroom. One who is not dull, like stale beer. Such is the woman who becomes the headdress keeper. I do not block my husband's path from his new wife. If he likes, let him build for her an iron-roofed house on the hill. I do not complain. My grass-thatched house is enough for me. I am not angry with the woman with whom I share my husband. I do not fear to compete with her. All I ask is that my husband should stop the insults. My husband should refrain from heaping abuses on my head. You should stop being half crazy and saying terrible things about my mother. Listen and show, my old friend, the ways of your ancestors are good. Their customs are solid and not hollow. They are not thin, not easily breakable. She's now telling the husband that African culture is the best way and not the European culture. That's what she's saying. Listen and show, my old friend. You're supposed to marry your friend. The ways of your ancestors are good. Their customs are solid and not hollow. They are not thin, not easily breakable. They cannot be blown away by the winds because their roots reach deep into the soil. Talking about the fact that Africa is the cradle of human civilization and its culture goes way back to the beginning of time. I do not understand the ways of foreigners, but I do not despise their customs. Why should you despise yours? Listen, my husband, you are the son of a chief. The pumpkin in the cold homestead must not be uprooted. So that's song 2. So we'll go to, let's see what Oshola has to say. Does anybody have this book that can read as well? Do you have some of the show? Okay, let me some of the show, part 1. Let's hear what he has to say. Because this is discourse. You have to balance it up. This is discourse, you have to balance it up. That means when you hear from this other side, you also hear from this other side. Otherwise, you cannot draw conclusions. Some of us show. Woman, shut up. Pack your things. Go. Take all the clothes I bought you. The beads, necklaces, and the remains of the utensils. I need no second-hand thing. There's a large sack in the boot of the car. Take it, put all your things in it, and go. Song of the woman is the confused noise made by the ram after the butcher's knife has sung past the windpipe. Red pens spraying on the grasses. It is a song all alone, a solo family with no chorus, no accompaniment, a strange melody, impossible to orchestrate, as if in echo, a women's wailing, yesterday's funeral, song of the dead out of an old tomb, stealthy cracking of dry bones, falling in the skulls under the weight of earth, is the dull thud of the wooden arrow as it strikes the concrete of a wall and falls to the ground, to the earth, extinguished, without life, like a bird, hit by stones from a boy's catapult. Have you heard the sigh of a monarch in exile, who squats on a log in the shadow of a disused hut? It is cold, the keen wind knives through his torn trousers, taking his bruised knee to raw fennel tongue. Yesterday, the smallest toe on the left foot slowly whips blood. fat housefly drones away. Under the armpit, it is tickly. The remains of a shirt sticks to his back. Yesterday, the red hot back, the thick purple carpet, the red slippers. His dry lips taste salty. A ball of thirst is climbing up his throat. He is forcing down some saliva. Yesterday, the waiter on his knees, the woman whispering, "My lord, my husband." The red wine, the soft lights, woman smile inviting man to bed. The hot lips of a younger sister, firm breast, the embrace. He looks at his hands, at the black fingernails, cold sweat. He's choking. He keeps asking himself, but why? 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 Son of the woman is the mad bragging of a defeated general. 10,000 men dead, dying, others scattered. It is the pointless defiance of the condemned. He is blindfolded, the rough hand of the noose round his neck. Woman, your son is rotting buffalo, left behind by the fleeing poachers, with nose blocked, with house flies, sucking bloody markers. The eyes, two lumps of green flies, feasting on crust of salty tears. Maggots, wallowing in the pots, in the spear wounds, skinny, necked, bald-headed vultures. Over above, wide-edged, stiff-jointed lions, leaping, hip hyenas, snout over bone. Some of the woman is sour sweet. It is punk, gone rancid. Is the honeyed, bloody sour milk in the stinking Maasai walls. I see an old homestead in the valley below. Huts, granaries, all in ruins. I see a large pumpkin rotting, 1,000 beetles in it. We will plow up all the valley, make compost of the pumpkins and the other native vegetables. The fence dividing the family holdings will be torn down. We will uproot the tricks of demarcating. We will uproot the trick demarcating the land of clan from land. We will obliterate tribal boundaries and total native tongues to dump to. These are the evils of colonialism, or the evils that Europeans perpetrated in Africa: the destruction of the environment, the killing of the wildlife, and the looting of the resources. The changing of African pre-colonial boundaries and setting up colonial boundaries. We will obliterate tribal boundaries and total native tongues to dump them. Houseboy, listen, call the yak, help the woman pack her things, then sweep the house clean and wash the floor. And I'm off to town to fetch the painter. So I want someone to tell me the symbolic meaning of Song of the Show. I want you to tell us the symbolic meaning of Song of the Show. Symbolic meaning of Song of the Show. Especially in his asking Lawino to pack her things like this. Right? He's asking Lawino to pack her things like this. And what? And he's wanting not to see any trace of her in the house. Okay? What? Yes? Okay. So when speaking, he's speaking for, he represents the Europeans, the colonial masters, and their value. So in not wanting Lawino to be in the house, the symbolic meaning is that when the Europeans came, they flushed out African culture, they looked down on African culture, disseminated it, and imposed their own. Seeing in his being a modern woman that believes in his values, European values as well. So that is exactly what it means. He wants to paint the house. Painting, in this case, is the European tradition. So he wants to rewrote African culture, any African culture in that house. Okay, so the house is then a microcosm of Africa. Okay, and the two persons living in it represent the African and colonial values competing during colonial time. That's how you're supposed to read the poem beyond. And so most of the destructive imagery that Osho uses in his response, which scene shows how the European regard African lands a place to loot and destroy. You will see the animals that have been killed, um, the 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 renaming of the land, changing of the boundaries, and all of that, destruction of the landscape shows you the meaning of the poem. Let's look at part 2. Does anyone have part 2 to read? What is Africa to me? That's what I should be saying. What is Africa to me? Blackness. Deep, fathomless darkness. This plays into the European perception of Africa. Remember this person's work, Heart of Darkness. Okay? And the depiction of Africans in it. So, Osho is asking the question, what is Africa to me? Part 2 of some of the shows. What Africa to me? And it says blackness. Deep, fathomless darkness. That's how Europeans view Africa. So the heart of darkness. And so this poem now has um, this poem now intertextualizes with Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness at the level of theme. It dialogically connects the Heart of Darkness. Africa, idle giant, basking in the sun, sleeping, snoring, twitching in dreams. See how it depicts Africa. So the theme of this work goes beyond husband and wife quarrel. You are going to read in having a larger vision of colonialism, colonial values competing with African culture. But of course, when you read Lawino's language, you see that she's celebrating African culture over European values. But we are reading on show song, and he represents European values. That's why he's talking down in Africa. So you pay attention to that. Diseased with a chronic illness, choking with black ignorance. The European South Africans are still not knowing anything, right? Black ignorance. Chained to the rock of poverty. So today they still depict Africa as poor and helpless. Whereas Africa is the richest of the continent. They are the only ones who make Africa poor through the exploitation and looting of African natural resources. Always remember that. Okay? Even in neocolonialism, they place people like your president who is either ignorant, does not know what to do, or he plays the scripts of IMF and the World Bank and other neocolonial powers to make sure the people are individual funded in the midst of suffering. That's why we produce good oil, but we cannot buy fuel. Right? So it doesn't mean that we are poor. It simply means that there is mismanagement somewhere, orchestrated by the West in collusion with African youths. So Africa is never poor. The image of Africa as poverty, as a poor state, or poverty-stricken state, is there in Western narratives for their own agenda. And yet laughing, always laughing and dancing, the chains on her legs jangling. So this is the same image that of Africa that is depicted in Mr. Johnson. Okay? Whereby Mr. Johnson is always happy, making merriment, throwing parties, even in the midst of his problem. Okay? So that's the image of European, how the Africa. No heroism, no seriousness. Africans as clowns, jokers. Displaying his white teeth in bright pink gown, loose white teeth that cannot bite, joking, giggling, dancing. Stuck in a stamina match of superstitions, frightened by the spirit of the bush, the streams, the rock, sacred of corpses. He is now looking down on African culture and religion, presenting African culture and religion in in a in a in a mockery. Okay, making African culture and religion to look like mockery, calling African religion superstition. Right? The Africans are frightened by spirits, frightened by the bush and streams. So he is having a reductionist view of African religion because he doesn't understand, having been educated in the European culture, doesn't understand African culture and religion. He hears eerie noises from the left side of the mountain top, sees snakes in the whirlwind and at both ends of the rainbow. Because of how Africans interpret reality, seeing things in terms of symbols and signs, he looks down on African religion and superstition. The cave's house is God. The cave's house is God. That's the same way the Europeans look at African traditional religion. Okay? Because the Europeans believe in the existence of one God. Okay? Whereas Africans live in different deities. So the cave's house is God. Or he carries them on his head or on his shoulder. And he roams the wilderness, led by his cattle, or following the spoor of the elephant that he has speared but could not kill. Child, lovers of toys, look at the toy weapons, his utensils, his hut. He's laughing at everything the Africans used to survive, the spear that they used to kill animals, the houses that they built. He's mocking them, which is, for me, a sign of self-denigration that Chebe talked about. Toy cattle, toy children, timid, unadventurous, secret of the unbeaten track, unwinged. That means unwinged, that means uncivilized. Calling Africans uncivilized, in case you read the point. Clinging to mother's motherless breast, clinging to brother, to uncle, to clan, to tribe, because he's mocking now, he's now mocking African communalism. Okay? That the Africans live in groups, they exist as a community where everybody is relevant, where everybody cares about everyone. That's what it's mocking here. Clinging to brother, to uncle. The clan. Whereas in Europe, once you turn 18, you leave the house. Your parents will not even do anything for you again. Because you are now an adult. You're supposed to go out there, work, and fend for yourself. If you turn 18 and you're living in the house, you might have to contribute house rent. Okay? You work and contribute house rent. That's why sometimes when they at the point you really have to ask permission before you visit your parents. Mom, can I come over for summer? You just stay. And even when you go there, you have to feed yourself, pay the rent. Understand? So I'm sure the African culture is different from European culture. Because most of you will come back from university and still eat food in the house. You're enjoying the house. Okay? Nobody sends you away to go and fend for yourself. Okay? To Blackness, to Africa. Africa, this rich granary of taboos, customs, traditions. Mother, why? Why was I born black? So he's regretting his heritage, being born black, because he has accepted European values. Maybe he cannot change his skin like the white, like the modern African lady. And that's why when he looks at his skin, when the show looks at his skin, he feels ashamed that his skin is not white. Right? So that's how we need to understand that. So because suppose we read three the other side, we just take the third one here, and then we wrap it up. To hell with your pumpkins and your old homesteads. To hell with the house of old tradition and meaningless customs. So it shows looking down on African culture, abandoning African culture finally. That's why it says to hell with them. So please take note of all these things. Because the day of reckoning will come. Okay? We will smash the taboos one by one, and all the traditional norms and values that we will smash. Using European values to counter African values. Explode the basis of every superstition. We will uproot every sacred tree and demolish every ancestral shrine. We will not just break the wall of your hut, of your mud hut, to let in the air. Do you think we plan merely to bring light into the hut? We will set it ablaze. Let fire consume it all. This lie of backwardness. Africa is treated as backwards, and in the view of Europeans. We will uproot granaries, break up the cooking pots and water pots. We'll grind the grinding stones to powder, that obsolete tool in which you scratch the soil and the other rusty tools in the heart. The dried fish riddled with cockroaches, the piece of carcass hung above the skin place, black with soot. We'll make a big heap of all the rubbish from the hut and set the heap aflame. That is symbolic of the destruction to African culture and tradition by the fire of European racism and hate. Look at that woman shaking the rattle gourd and talking to herself. Maybe a priestess. Mocking the priestess now. Look at that woman shaking the rattle gourd and talking to herself. Maybe a priestess making chants or incantation. Mad creature. Her hair a burnt out forest because she's old. Her eyes a pair of rockets shooting out from the head. Serpent tongue, spitting poison, lashing crocodile tail. Do you see the fools sitting around her, terror-infested faces, eyes closed, bound with tears, lips cracked, bleeding, throat, parched desert of drought, that child lying on the earth, numb, bumps exploding in his head, blood boiling, heavy with malarial parasite raging through his veins. The mad woman spits on the palm of his hand, and on his spit squirts beer on his face to cool him, spills chicken blood on his chest, a gift to death, looking down on African traditional medicine and health system. The child's mother smiles. The diviner pleads with dread malaria. So it shows that there's a difference between African traditional medicine and European medicine. Okay, health system. So in Africa, any illness is cured both physically and spiritually. Okay? I give you blood, let this child live. Here's your beer, take your beer. Leave all this child, take your food. Okay? So that is in Africa. Maybe the child is sick, maybe there's a spirit that's angry and wants to take the child has to be at peace, or the spirit has to be at peace to let the child go. So Ocol is making mockery of that system. We can help system. Okay? We will round up all these priests, all priestesses of darkness, all the rainmakers and herbalists, men and women who sacrifice at chiefdom or clan shrine. Okay? So they want to destroy African religion by attacking the personalities behind those religions. Okay? We will arrest all the witches, wizards, evil eyes, sellers of fetish bundles, bones and claws, dealers in poisons, extracted from plants, are medicine. Medicine is now called poison, extracted from plants, right? But everybody knows that most African medicine is extracted natural, from the natural resources around us, herbs, herbs and plants. Excuse me. Dealers in poisons, extraction from. So that is like kind of, excuse me, that's a kind of ironic. The African medicine now is now called poison. It's ironic, right? And venoms of snakes. Everyone knows that some snake venom can be used for cure, right? And that's how, that's really in African medicine. So sometimes they say if something happens to you, you rub it with snake venom, you go away. So this such thing. But now, it's really looking down on it. Doesn't see any good in our traditional medicine. Okay? But even in modern times like this, traditional medicine now exists side by side with modern medicine. Because people are beginning to realize that it was potent after all. So some things in it that were good, right? They're trying to bring it back. We call it sardine. We will put all these pillars of fear in a leg steamer, tuck them to the deepest part, and cast them into the bowl. We will arrest all the village poets, musicians, and tribal dancers, put in detention, false storytellers, and myth makers, the sustainers of the village morality. They don't want the village bad. That means that speaks to how the European writers and critics look down on African oral literature. Okay? Or claim that we did not even have literature at all. Okay? Because that's what was written, and that was oral. So take note of this thing and interpreting the point. Quite important. You will disband the nest of court historians, glorifiers of the past, will ban the stupid village anthem of backwards, ever, forward, never. So here, the attempt by Africans to record their history is resisted by the Europeans because they want to tell lies about us through the written tradition. Okay? And Most of these lies told by the Europeans still exist today and are believed by some Africans because they were written down. An African history that was oral and could not be recorded was lost. So now we are trying to retrieve them to counter the written lies they are written tradition. So that's what the show is saying here. That they want to make sure that these historians, whom we call glorifiers of the past, because we use our past, African past to counter European narratives about Africa. Because when they came, they said that Africa did not have religion, did not have culture, but we need back to tell them, to show them that they are lying. And that's why they don't want us to bring back the past. Okay? Regardless, with all the professors of anthropology and the teachers of African history, gunfire will make of their works, will destroy all the anthologies of African literature, and close down all schools of African studies. Okay? Ocol is saying all this because he's raised in European cultural tradition. Where is M. Seychelles and Leopold Senghor? What do they represent? Where is M. Seychelles and Leopold Senghor? What do they represent? They are the pioneer philosophers of negritude. Okay? Leopold Senghor and M. Seychelles. So maybe in the next slide we'll talk about negritude before we proceed. Because the pioneer press were of two categories. There were those in the Anglophone African countries, and there were those in the Francophone African countries. Those in the Francophone African countries were mostly those who believe in negritude, right? We need to celebrate African culture and tradition, so we'll talk about that. So by mentioning M. Seychelles here and Leopold Senghor here, we have a kind of historical or literary allusion because they represent the figures of negritude. And negritude is a philosophy that promotes black culture, okay, and black pride. Arrest Janus Jan and father of Placid Temples put in detention all the preachers of negritude. See? The balloon of African personality exploded long ago. The boy is dead. We will erect no memorial for him. Why should I care? Who built the citadel of Zimbabwe? Of what relevance is it? Is it whether black men architected the pyramids? These are things that point to the fact that African civilization goes farther back compared to European civilization. When Africans were building universities, Europeans were living in caves. Right? The fact of history. And Africans were going to universities, Europeans were living in caves. Right? And so they could not claim to be more civilized than Africa. Most civilizations they came and destroyed, and then turn around to say that Africans are not civilized. Smash all the mirrors that I may not see, blackness of the past from which I came, reflected in them. All right, so that's the song of Lawino and song of Ocol, and I would like you to pick up the book and read the entire collection. But that is to give you an idea about the transition poetry that celebrated African culture and picked against colonialism. And when we meet again in the next class, we'll look at the poems of Kibo, one poem from Chenka, one poem from Clark, and Gabriel Okara, to see how they celebrate African culture and how they resist colonialism in their times. Morning.